All right, guys. Second topic for today. You actually brought this up to me, so you might be able to explain a little bit better. The idea is unique games. Go for it.
Yeah, so we were today there was a game. You're gonna have to help me what it's called. Perception.
No, it's something like that, right? Or is it? I backed it. I mean, let me check my tweets.
There's a game that was made by ex-BioShock developers. Obviously, Irrational is no more, and those guys got laid off. Irrational is Boston-based, so a lot of these guys stayed in Boston and created a new studio.
Perception, sorry, by Deep End Games.
Deep End Games is the new studio, and the game is called Perception. And it's a game that seems to be inspired a great deal by Gone Home, which is a game we very much love, which is a more explorative, narrative-based game. But in this game, you play as a blind woman. And what's interesting is that you have no tools at your disposal except for like some sort of echolocating kind of thing and like a smartphone and stuff like that, but you can't really see. And we were seeing the trailer. The game looks beautiful. I'm not quite entirely sure like what the perspective of your character is going to be, if she's like truly blind. In other words, if the screen would be black or whatever.
That's the perception.
Yeah.
Or that's how it is. I mean, if you've seen Daredevil Netflix, when they go into his field of view, that's what it looks like, and that's what they're talking about. Is like by using your phone or throwing things in the room, you get to see the sound waves echo off stuff, come back to you. You see what it is basically, right? But then there's this monster around the house too that you're trying to avoid. So the question becomes, do I throw this vase down the end of the hall to see the entire hall, or will that alert the person or the monster to where I am and stuff like that? And you have to hide. And
good lord,
yeah, it's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah,
and so it brought up it's a brilliant idea. It's a game that it's the type of game that I've never heard of before. I've never heard of a game like this.
Yeah,
and it reminds me of other really unique, like Sound Shapes, for instance, which was a really speaking of video games, like a really, really, really unique game where you're platforming but you're making music as you go, and like the decisions you make and the things you collect like make the music more robust or less robust. Like, for all the games we like, we were talking about Wolfenstein and how great of a shooter that is. Shovel Knight, which is a very it's a fun game. It's a very derivative game.
Which are open world RPG.
Yeah, exactly. Like these games are unique, and they resonate with me more.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Gone Home. Like people shit.
Yeah.
Some people give Gone Home shit. I don't think they know what they're talking about. Like I think Gone Home was extraordinary, in its simplicity, but also in its resonance, its emotional resonance, and stuff like that.
Another ex-BioShock guys.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of people have learned a great deal from Ken Levine.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah, you just kind of hear. I mean, I've talked to Walt Williams a lot in the past. Walt Williams wrote Spec Ops: The Line. He's a prolific games writer, and he talked about how much he told me something along the lines of, you come onto a game and you learn something about it, but you also have to help it. And when he was on BioShock, he's like, this game didn't need me at all.
Yeah,
all I did was learn from the master.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then he wrote Spec Ops. And BioShock's, of course, one of the great games of all time. So yeah, I just wanted to bring up some unique games, like games that you've never, that are different. You can never make another Sound Shapes. You can make a sequel to it, but there could never be another Sound Shapes like game.
And there can be games inspired by Sound Shapes and stuff. That's what you're talking about. That's what's so interesting about right now. What I was talking about is the fact that I think it's the best time to be a video game connoisseur or player or whatever you want to call us. You know what I mean? In the way that, and I've used this analogy before, the silly putty thing, right? When games start, they're very simple. We know what that is, and then people start stretching it out in all these different directions. And now there's a game for every mood and everything you're in, right? And that's what's awesome, is that every day now a new Kickstarter pops up for something. In the same vein of that, right, is that apartment game, A Separated Place, that we did a Let's Play for, right? Like, I immediately went and gave them $80 on Kickstarter. I'm like, I love your idea here of this. Again, it's a narrative-driven game. It starts that the first story we played was you're in an apartment dealing with, your girlfriend who left you, and you're an artist, so you find the clues around there and then draw your story. But then you leave the building and go next door, and this woman's a writer, and she's writing while you're writing her, not only writing her messages in the book, you're responding to your husband and then texting your lover, it seems like. And it's like all these amazing, like, holy shit. And for me right now, when I think of unique games, that's what I think of. I think of these games that have the power to put me in someone else's shoes in a way I would have never been able to. And like, don't get me wrong, books do that, documentaries, news stories even, you know what I mean? But to sit there and be at controlling what's happening and understanding. I go back to Coming Out Simulator 2. That was a game I played that it was like super simple Flash-based web thing. You jump onto a student project or whatever, right? And the guy opens it with like, this is my story of how it went. Obviously there's choices here, so it's not like you're getting variables that didn't happen in mine, but this is all very true to what happens. You go through and you play it, and it's just like the weight of the, of being gay and not being able to tell your parents, trying to tell your parents, and them immediately rejecting it, and like going back and forth with your boyfriend. It's just like, holy shit, you know what I mean? These are experiences I wouldn't have gotten. And again, in the very similar vein, Gone Home, but in a completely different way. And the fact that Coming Out Simulator was me choosing options off of a screen. It kind of looks like a cell phone the entire time, whereas Gone Home was, I'm this woman's sister, right? And I've come home, and what the fuck's going on? And that game for me will always be special, just in the way of I went into it and somehow was able to keep my knowledge of it to nothing. You know what I mean? Got in there, played it, and thought I was playing a horror game. And then I kept getting, okay, what's that? And then you're like, oh, this is a cool story, whatever. Sam Milani's fine, but I need to worry about that. And then slowly it catches up of like, is this the game? It's them. This is their holy shit. And then at the end, the terror's back for a completely different reason. You know what I mean? It was like, I finished that game, and I always say I took off my headset and I went into the bedroom and I hugged Christine, right? Because it was just, again, so bittersweet. It was so amazing, and that's one of those experiences that changed me.
Well, I think that's something that makes games so unique is when you don't know about it, and it's a new experience that you can't even imagine. Because once you kind of have an idea of what it is, it changes it, And I feel like when you say what's the most unique game, like a couple's pop into my head. Journey's one of them. Yeah. But I feel like Journey, I didn't have that connection with in the same way because I knew about it. People were like, oh, you should play this. This is a thing. So my answer would be Flower before Journey. Yeah. Flower, it was more similar to Gone Home for me, where it's like, I weirdly like that game. Like, I really enjoy it. And I remember first hearing about it, and I was like, that's really fucking weird. Like, why would anyone like that? Why would I want to play it? And then I watched a trailer of it, and I was like, there's something about this, like the way that like the it has a custom score they made just for it, and like the music kind of changes depending on what you're doing and stuff. I'm like, man, there's a lot of this looks like a tech demo, but it looks like a cool, engaging tech demo. I want to try it, so I just bought it, downloaded it, and then as I was playing it in the first level, you're just kind of flying around, and like you're learning the mechanics. 'Cause when you first look at it, it doesn't look like a game.
Yeah, you're like, what is interactive screensaver? Like, what am I
exactly.
doing? Yeah.
And that's kind of what sold it to me, was the idea of it being an interactive screensaver. I'm like, that's fucking cool. I used to love screensavers. It's like, I like that idea. And then, but playing it, like you start going through, and then you start getting in the flow of it. And like, that's something about video games that I think is unique to gaming, is when you're in the zone.
Right.
Right. Like when you're playing Guitar Hero and you're not even fucking looking anymore. You're just kind of like, holy shit, this is just happening.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. And Flower had a lot of those moments for me where you kind of get in the zone, and it's like it's a motion control game.
Yeah.
But
unfortunately,
yeah. But
not on your PlayStation Vita anymore.
Huh?
It's not motion control on your PlayStation Vita anymore.
Oh yeah. Is it? You can control it with analog sticks on the Vita?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What I always wanted in that
right?
game.
Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah. But there was something about it though that it didn't feel wrong to me playing on the PS3. Like I would have rather used the analog sticks for sure. But as I was doing, I was like, okay, man, this is going, and this is cool. And I got into it, and when you start going through the valleys and stuff, and you start going really fast. I remember really kind of getting into it and mastering the subtle movements of the controller. And then you get to the second level, and it's like a little darker. It's not as colorful and pretty. Then you get to the third level, and it's really dark. Then you get to the fourth level, and it's like, oh shit, things are really fucked up.
Yeah.
As you go through that game, I remember constantly being like, why am I still playing this? Like, there's no reason for me to be still playing this. Besides everything I just said, besides the fact that this is a weird experience, the gameplay's not that fun. There's not that much going on, but it's so subtle that it's like, that is what made it unique to me. And by the end of it, I'm like, holy crap, that was a fucking awesome game.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that is the unique experience.
Flower is a great game. Journey to me was a game where people kept telling me to play. I had a different experience from you because I knew what it was, and people kept telling me to play, and I'm like, I'll get to it. And when we nominated for Game of the Year at IGN, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna play it one day, and it was so incredible that I refused to ever play it again. I was like, I'm never playing this game again. Like that's like my time and place with that game. It made me cry at the end. I have no idea why. And that was and the Unfinished Swan was a very similar game where that's a game I think more along the lines of like it will be ruined for you if you actually know what it is and like what happens in the game. We know the black and white kind of ball throwing mechanic, but the game changes radically. So. There are unique games like that. I was just going to say, too, Until Dawn was the other game that I brought up when we were discussing topics, because Until Dawn is another totally fucking unique game. And whether or not Until Dawn is the PlayStation 4 exclusive, comes out August 25th, it's a teen horror movie. And, like, but you play it. And
you make choices in it. Yeah,
wait, was that the one with
Hayden Panettiere?
Yeah.
And it looks awesome. Yeah. Like, and I played it extensively, and I'm excited about that. It's another game where it's like, this is this is new, this is unique. Now, new and unique doesn't always mean it's going to be good, but I personally feel like if you've not played something like this, like a game like Game X, it's more likely than not that it's going to be more resonant with you than if you've played a million games like it. So I like when there's a game, I like what I like. I like comfortable games. I like shooters and I like role-playing games and all these kinds of things. But every once in a while, there's room and necessity for playing a game like Journey, like the Unfinished Swan, games that you might not ever go back to, but or this game Perception, like it's awesome. This is so fantastic. I agree that we live in a really fantastic time right now to play games.
There are motion controls in Flower. Sorry, on Vita. My bad.
Oh, there are.
Yeah.
Can you play with sticks?
It doesn't look like it.
Oh.
I was gonna say they seem to be very. They could have. First of all, Sony published that game. Mm-hmm. They could have patched it for free.
Yeah.
And at any time they wanted, and they clearly didn't because they didn't want to. So it's they could have and they should have, but they didn't because I think that was the experience.
I do. Yeah, it was an experience game, and I think that goes a long way. And it's like, I don't know if I would have stuck with it if it was analog sticks. And like that's weird for me to say because it's like even though that was something I didn't enjoy about it, it's like it was part of it.
Right.
And it's again, I don't know why I played that game until the end, but then it's like I was, and there was something keeping me doing it. So. I feel like Journey in a lot of ways is the natural progression of Flower, where it makes a lot more sense.
You see it from Flow to Flower to Journey, like their entire lineage.
See, Flow never clicked with me.
No, me neither. But it was one of those games of this is different and weird, and it seems cool, and you play it, and I was like, I played 15, 20, 30 minutes of it. I don't need it anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That is a very it's like a Flash game. Yeah. And it was a Flash game.
Yeah.
Cloud was that was their first game, and that was a Flash game too. And now we don't know what the hell they're going to do next, but. We had Genova Chen on at GDC. It was pretty interesting and very interesting. Very
doesn't sound like it's crushing his soul at all. Trying to
no, definitely not.
Journey.
Definitely not. I think that I like the games that are derivative. I like games that are some of the same things that we. It's like putting on like your comfortable sweatpants or something like it just feels right and you have to do it every once in a while. But sometimes you have to play and try these different kinds of games and. So this game Perception is really exciting. There's other games that are coming up. I'm excited about Mighty Number 9 because it sounds like it's not quite as much like Mega Man as I think people think it is, but it's still Mega Man, and I'm excited about that. But for every game like that, I'm excited about something else that's totally whacked out and different. And we can even talk about games like iDarb or
Home.
Rocket League, like games that are just like fucking bizarre that are fun.
That's what's so exciting right now is that it feels like, we had the glut when PlayStation 1 was happening of like anything can happen. It's so easy to make games for this system, right? Because of CD-ROMs. Yeah. And then that went away. And now that the indies and digital distribution are here, we're back to it. It's like, go do whatever. You have a team.
I feel like the PS2 era
3, whatever,
was like really creative. Like there was a ton of just really unique games then too. Yeah. You just saying this though, it reminded me, this is like, that's not the most unique game by any stretch of the imagination, but it has unique elements. But Splatoon.
Splatoon's very unique.
That we played. We did a Let's Play of it. That should be a lot. Yes, exactly. And man, playing that game, it was interesting because we played it since yesterday. I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, I had fun doing that. So I don't know. I might need to get on this. I might be the fucking Splatoon's biggest fan.
Whoa.
Gettys.
We've given a lot of recommendations for games that people can play. Obviously, that game company stuff. One of the most unique games. That floored me and it will always be one of my favorites. I have a huge thing of it in my room, a huge box of it in my room is Catherine. And I think that Catherine is still one of the most special games on PlayStation 3. One of my favorite games maybe of all time. I think it was in my top 25 list when I did it at IGN. It's fucked up and it's like a dating sim meets Qbert kind of. Yeah. And it's awesome. That game is awesome. And that was Persona Team's game in between Persona 4 and Persona 5s and they were just kind of taking a break.
Yeah, great.
And if that's any indication of what that team can do, there's reason to be excited about Persona 5. More than one reason, of course. But Catherine, I recommend. It's an easy game to get for people now.
That's a good example, though. That's a very unique game. Mm-hmm. Yeah.